Tourism Committee to order. We have a quorum. One of the bills that are on your agenda today, if you have signed up for House Bill 100, has been removed. We took care of that bill essentially in the House day before yesterday, but the first bill we're going to have up today, Chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Harold, you can go wherever you'd like and present House Bill, the substitute to House Bill 184.
We started a process a year ago dealing with streamlining the deployment of new small cell technologies throughout the state of Georgia. In the interim, the interested parties worked diligently for over 7 months, hours after hours, with advocates, with the legal teams, and with the various policy and engineering, and have reached an agreement with regard to deployment of this new technology in our right-of-ways throughout our state. Today you have before you House Bill 184 that sets the parameters for that technology deployment. I'm very proud to say that the Association of County Commissioners, the Georgia Municipal Association, the providers, AT&T, Verizon, others, our EMCs, Georgia Power, the cable companies, all have had input into this measure and have either taken a position of support or neutral on the bill. It's quite an effort to bring that many diverse parties on something as advanced as this, dealing with advanced technologies, dealing with access to our right-of-ways, to come to that agreement. So I'm very grateful for all that effort throughout the off-season. I applaud all those that worked hard to accomplish that. Those of you that were here last session and have been part of this, you're aware of the issues dealing with co-location of these antennas and installation of a new product when necessary. Co-location continues to be the preferred choice. At that, I know all of us have other hearings this afternoon. I'd be glad to answer questions. I can go through the bill in much greater detail if you prefer. It is rather lengthy. But would be glad to do that as well, and also members of both the county and city organizations as well as the providers are present to answer questions as well.
And for some of our new members, if you do have questions, feel free to ask. This is, for those of us that have been around, this has been hashed out pretty well. It is amazing that we've got all the parties at the table and nodding their heads. So anyone on the committee have any questions? If not, we've got some speakers here. Let's go with Kevin Curtin first with AT&T. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative, so now, how will this affect?
Pardon?
How will this affect? I have some areas in my district. I'm in Macon, and we have some kind of rural parts of Macon that's not so densely populated.
Right.
How will this affect us?
So this new technology will be deployed first in the more urban areas, but that could be Macon's downtown area, where you've got the historic downtown area in Macon. But over time, it also will deploy further out. This a new technology, which is often referred to as 5G, it increases the capacity on networks that you're already connected to, and gives you more bandwidth, more capacity on those networks. The bill also makes allowances for new technologies that are actually in pilot. For example, in Georgia, we have a program called AirGig that's in pilot with AT&T and Georgia Power. And so this would cover those new and emerging technologies even beyond the small cell technology.
Okay. May I follow up?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman, thank you. That's all well and good. So I've worked downtown Macon, and it seems like frequency and is well performed there. But I have constituents that are like always on my back about, and rightfully so. You know, they have children and they're trying to get homework done and all of these kinds of things. So do you have any kind of timeline as to how we'll work this where it pushes on out and gets into some of the more rural areas, which, you know, Macon's really not that rural?
Right. There's other initiatives also proceeding through the House and the Senate dealing with more traditional broadband and connectivity for other aspects of rural Georgia, which may be more in line with the question that you're asking with regard to those providers. That was also part of the Rural Development Council's initiative, and there's legislation moving to encourage that as well. That is, this bill will have an impact in areas throughout the state, in every corner of the state, but again, it's the more densely populated portions, so it's more, a downtown Macon, a downtown Dublin, a downtown Columbus, or what have you.
Well, I want to thank you all for the work that you're doing, and I really appreciate it. I know we have to start somewhere.
Yes, ma'am.
But from what I understand, it's been a lot of negotiating and collaborating, and just really want to let you know I appreciate everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe the AT&T folks, and don't leave, Mr. Chairman, probably can explain a little bit more about how this looks. Representative Morris?
Chairman Harrell, it's my understanding in the past that the providers are able to get very creative when putting these devices in historic districts, that there are different options there that can make it blend in, say, into a downtown Beaufort. Do you know am I right in that assumption, or are you familiar with that? Is that something that you could answer?
You're correct. There was negotiations on the historic districts. There are provisions in the bill that prescribed how location of equipment in a historic district would take place, gives the authority with the local governments for review and denial if it's not in keeping with the historic district, requires that the aesthetics of the installation approximate those historic districts. The same is true in areas that have underground facilities. If you have a community that is putting everything underground, and so long as it's non-discriminatory in how it's being applied to the technologies, those same provisions are in this bill also. So the local governments, and they can certainly share more, are satisfied that the level of oversight, the level of flexibility they have to preserve their historic downtowns, to preserve their zoning and aesthetics, and to preserve those that are going underground, they maintain a level of comfort that they have enough control to serve their local community and still make the technology available when appropriate and meeting those requirements.
And I think some of the questions might be answered by Mr. Curtin here whenever he tells us what these massive things look like. They're not really big, and they kind of blend in. So if there are no other questions of the chairman, I will move to Mr. Curtin.
And I was going to ask if it's with your indulgence to have ACG,
Oh,
GMA,
certainly.
and Verizon join me. They're the four parties that negotiated.
Kumbaya, everybody.
And I'll just kick it off for time. Kevin Curtin with AT&T. Appreciate the chairman's entertainment of this bill. This really is a product of about 7 months of negotiations. We met every other week for several hours, going through every provision of this bill. It was, I would say it's very well hashed out and a very good compromise, meaning nobody's completely satisfied, but everyone's a little bit uncomfortably willing to move forward to try to get this technology deployed. We stand ready to do that. We think these rules are fair and equitable, and we look forward to bringing more wireless broadband to more locations around the state.
Tell us what they look like.
Yes, sir. They typically are attached to mostly existing utility poles. So as you drive down the street, you'll see power poles along the side of the street. These are small antennas that typically 6 feet, the antenna or 6 cubic feet or smaller. And then there's a radio down lower on the pole, which produce a wireless signal of up to about 1,000 feet radius, very high speed wireless broadband signal. And then as 5G is starting to be deployed, which we just started deploying that late in 2018, that is the primary way most people will get their highest speed 5G coverage is via small cell. So small cell is going to be something that's going to be pervasive around the state. You'll see it start in the bigger markets, but then like every other wireless technology, we started LTE, which is the current standard, in 2011. We had it fairly well deployed statewide within 6-7 years. So it takes a few years to get out there, but we have to get started somewhere, and we think this bill's a really good start.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
From ACCG.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Todd Edwards with the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. It is a very complex bill. I'll just give a very broad overview. We understand in Georgia counties the need for the spread of this technology. I think what we didn't agree on last year, what we're agreeing on now, is the way to deploy it, the need for it to be deployed in county and city right-of-way, and for us to be able to work with the industry and at the same time respecting a local community's ability to properly manage its right-of-way. I don't think those two were balanced quite equitably last year. That's what we were charged with negotiating over the summer. The bill before you is what we believe is a fair, adequate compromise to meet that balance, again, with the understanding the need for this technology, at the same time respecting a local government's ability to manage its right-of-way on behalf of its public safety, et cetera. With that, I'll be happy to go over any details, but that's the broad overview of what we've been working on and what we come to propose and urge your support on today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Bob Davis, I'm with Verizon. I just want to touch on some of the things that have been spoken about. So the purpose of this technology is we face two things today. We basically have a data tsunami out there for the use of our smartphones. So in high concentrated areas like downtowns, in Macon and so forth, in big cities, we need to increase our capacity to offload traffic from these macro towers. Secondly, as Kevin mentioned, this is going to usher in the new 5G technology. So with that framework, we got together with the cities and counties and negotiated a real hard agreement, which allows us to get access to the right-of-way and put things on infrastructure in the right-of-way. The important point of this legislation is it creates consistency across the state. Instead of negotiating with the 159 counties and 535 cities across the state, we're going to have one set of standards that will apply to everybody, and we'll work very hard to get that done.
Awesome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Stevens, members of the committee. I'm Charlotte Davis with the Georgia Municipal Association. I just want to echo everything that the others here said. We worked very hard and very diligently on this legislation and really want to thank y'all at your direction, and particularly the House Rural Development Council, for taking up the issue of 5G technology and really challenging the cities and counties and providers to come together and to work out this issue. And we did that, and it took 7 months, but I think the bill, House Bill 184 that y'all have before you, really does have the deployment mechanism necessary for the providers, but enough assurance for us at the city and county level. And specifically to the question about historic districts, the cities, that was something that was that was a very sensitive issue last session and had a lot of concerns at the local level. But the protections that are in the bill today for historic districts, we think are the best, and that not only does it recognize historic districts designated at the federal and state level, but also at the local level. And so we're thinking that that's going to have a lot of sensitive community areas where they care a lot about aesthetics. That's going to be the necessary protection there, and that the providers know coming in the aesthetics that they have to work within, and know how to stealthily conceal those types of things, whether it's on decorative poles or new poles. So like I said, I'd be happy to answer any specific local government or city questions, but there are a lot of safeguards in there, and we ask for favorable consideration of the bill.
Susan?
Yes, I'd just like to ask you, please, can you just tell me briefly what the protection is for historic districts?
Yes, ma'am. So the way that it reads, and y'all hop in to help, but the historic district designation, so basically we have to either at the local, state, or federal level have an historic district designated, and cities are used to that. They have, aside from telecom, as you well know, or have those designations on the books, and so the providers coming in will know, okay, we're going into a historic district, and it's not that they're going to be completely shut out of those historic districts in all cases, but it's that they will spend extra time working with certain stealth and concealment measures to match the aesthetic, and that's why it's so important on the decorative poles or other infrastructure like that. They'll know coming into those areas that that's sort of the mechanism in the law that they have to fall under. And that's something we all agreed on, and I think it'll work well.
Could I ask one
Yes,
more
ma'am.
thing? So you don't have to have the approval of the city to do that, is that correct?
Well, you do, yes, ma'am. You'll still need to go through the full permitting process, but once that application is submitted to the city, they'll see that, okay, the location that the providers are wanting to go in happens to be a historic district, and then those guidelines, they'll fall under that.
I got you. Thank you.
Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a question. I don't have a question, just a request, because I'm not gonna hold the process up today. But could one of you bring me a picture? I'm so visual, and I had hoped to see something on the screen today. But if you could
Come by and see me tomorrow and bring me a picture, or right after the meeting. I'd like to visualize what they'll look like. Thank you.
I will note that on most every corner outside the Capitol, they do have this technology, and throughout downtown Atlanta, down here on Mitchell Street, if you look up, yeah, if it will have I'm not the technological expert, but it will have the equipment box located on the side, as well as a cylindrical type antenna up top, as that's exactly what we're talking about. And we worked with them to try to conceal them as best we could, allow it, the technology, but also respecting historic district, underground areas, and places with decorative poles. Those were a lot of issues that have been worked out through the negotiations.
Ladies and gentlemen, in my 22 years up here, this is rare to get ACCG and GMA and all of the folks that are involved just singing along the same sheet of music. So I'm seeing no more questions. I'll entertain a motion. You're on, sorry.
Great. First of all, I want to commend everybody for coming to the table. I know that this is something that you guys, Kevin, you and I started talking about this a couple of years ago, and I'm like Chairman Stevens to see you guys come together and to work like this. It's a great collaboration, and I think it's a big thing for the people of Georgia. So I want to tell you how much I appreciate it. And I believe that I'll move that we do pass this bill.
Is there a second? We have a second. All those in favor of passing the substitute to House Bill 184 LC 363820 ERS will say aye. Aye. All those opposed. It goes on to rules unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen and lady. Moving on to a bill that we've heard before. Representative Kendrick on H.R. 72.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am bringing before you H.R. 72. It is a bill that passed this committee last year without any opposition. And I have with me Mr. Rodney Sampson, who you also heard from last year. And what this does is it urges the state of Georgia to host the world's largest startup pitch competition. Right now in New York, they have a similar competition that Mr. Sampson can speak a little bit more about. And they have invested about $5 million for startup companies to either start or grow their businesses. And we are encouraging the state of Georgia, because I think the state of Georgia can do better than New York, to actually partner with private companies to raise up to $15 million so that we can continue to help and support small businesses, particularly because we have a booming film industry here. And so that is the gist of the urging resolution. It made it to rules last year, so I'm hopeful that we can push it forward this year. But that's all I had to say, unless you wanted to hear from Mr. Sampson.
Questions of committee of the author? Rodney, would you like to?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd just like to echo what Representative Kendrick said with Georgia's growing film ecosystem, but also its startup entrepreneurship ecosystem as well, and the need for more access to early stage equity capital. I think this would be an amazing opportunity to set a precedence for Georgia to be that leader in the region. Since we are already the #1 place for small business, let's just continue to increase that. Thank you.
That sounds great. Is there other questions of committee? Representative Bennett.
At the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I move to pass.
That time is now. We have a motion to pass, a second. Is there any other conversation by the committee? All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Bill passes on to rules. Thank you, Representative Kendrick. Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.